Anything's possible. Anything's possible.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Good Morning Let's Basketball. We're back with another episode. This is a time travel episode because we are on spring break, which means this episode is being pre-recorded. So if anything happens that is out of date, we have no control over that. So today we got a lot to unpack. We got Rudy Gobert's comments about technical fouls to talk about. We have Charles Barkley making a questionable take about fixing the Boston Celtics bench, insisting that Porzingis move to the bench. That's going to be an interesting one. After that, we're going to go ahead and draft, me and Victor, two teams, one with tattoos and one without tattoos, and let the comments decide whose is better. We're going to do a perfectly rated, overrated, or underrated segment for certain players. And then we're going to finish it off with comment of the week. If it isn't obvious already, we're missing Daniel and we're missing Kevin for different reasons. But today it's just going to be me and Victor. It's actually quite a chilly day today in our home city of Omaha, Nebraska. But let's break into our first topic here. Victor, why don't you tell us more about Charles Barkley?
Yeah, so Charles Barkley came out and said that one of the ways to fix the Celtics bench problems, because that's obviously been a part of the Celtics, like known one of their main weaknesses is that bench. Their starting lineups, obviously 1 through 5, amazing, very versatile. You can switch it out any way you want. You can go big, you can go small, depending on what team you want to play. But the Celtics bench is where they really lack. They got rid of Robert Williams, which hurt them this season because they needed a good, solid center to come off the bench and fill that role. But Mike, what do you think? Do you think Porzingis needs to come off the bench?
Well, I'm gonna say this first. Number one thing, don't ever disrespect Al Horford like that because he is a
Oh, I
good bit
forgot.
coming off the bench.
I forgot about how Horford.
Second of all, I missed the Time Lord as a Celtics fan, but you know, I didn't hate to see him go. Man was injury prone. But um moving Porzingis to the bench is, I mean, I don't know if there's truly a lot to unpack here because I think that's just absolutely absurd. Porzingis is having arguably the best season of his career. Yes, the bench is weak, but with five star-studded starters, there's really no reason you can't just mix up the lineups. I mean, I feel like there's watching these games, there's rarely a time where it's an entire bench unit on the floor. Like we're never gonna see Pritchard, Hauser, Horford, and like not one of the other two starters on the floor for extended periods of time. So I feel like that's just a crazy absurd take to take away the main shot blocker, the anchor, the defense, and move him to the bench. I mean, that's a crazy take. We do got Xavier Tillman though.
Yeah. I mean, I could see maybe like going into the like start of the second half and moving Porzingis to the bench. Like maybe they could try doing that. But I think definitely to start out the game, you might as well start Porzingis because like with him, like you said, he's gonna be able to stretch the floor for the Celtics as well. Plays a lot on the 3-point line.
I know that Horford, like Horford can stretch the floor too, which I think is what makes the Celtics so dynamic. I'm sure you know that. Um, but I feel like I was talking to some other people about this, and I feel like the only time it would make sense to have Horford instead of Porzingis would be either to guard Giannis or Embiid or Jokic because he's just a bigger body and on ball I feel like they're comparable. I feel like they're comparable players on ball. But we saw what Giannis did, or we saw what Horford did to Giannis in the playoffs. So I really don't see this being a viable option for them. But I don't know, Victor. You said starting the second half off. I don't know. I don't think that's a terrible idea, but I also don't think it's very realistic. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I personally don't see that Joe Mazzulla will do this because I think what like say the Celtics are doing already amazing this season, first in the East. They're 100% gonna make the NBA Finals. This is their year, So I don't think if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I think why would they change it up? I mean, Charles Barkley, knowledgeable when it comes to basketball. I'm not sure what starting lineup he was saying when it comes to this, but
I'm surprised that this was a Charles Barkley take and not like a Shaquille O'Neal take. Like I usually have a lot of respect for Charles Barkley. I think him and Ernie, and I guess Kenny too, but I mean, Barkley always struck me as someone who actually understands basketball and the player's perspective of things. So, um, yeah, that's a really interesting take. But yeah, I disagree for sure. I really don't think there's a lot to unpack here.
yeah, for sure.
But let's go ahead and move on. Um, let's talk about what happened with Rudy Gobert in their last game, which at the
Yeah.
time of this recording was against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, for anyone who doesn't have context, I believe that Rudy Gobert committed a foul. It was his sixth foul, which fouled him out of the game, and he made that money gesture right at the refs. Do you have Victor? Do you happen to have the post game comments pulled up of like what he said?
Yeah, I do. So Rudy Gobert suggested, I think it's hurting our game. I know that betting and all that is becoming bigger and bigger, but it shouldn't feel that way, is what he said to how gambling might affect the NBA games. And he's thinking that it has influenced the NBA referees. So that's why he was throwing the money symbols up to him. And, I could see that definitely being a possibility, but as a NBA and the organization, I don't think they're going to allow these refs to gamble on games, but there are multiple ways that people can do things. People find the easy way out of everything and trying to do stuff. So there could be referees that gamble on the games, but under the table. So, and then another thing I wanted to point out was Rudy Gobert did get fined for these comments.
You know how much?
Now, probably 25,000. That seems like it's always a typical fine amount.
Probably a dent in his net worth after that contract a couple years ago. But one thing I
I don't
wanted
know
to
if it
say,
left any dents.
yeah, for real. One thing I wanted to bring up is with a topic like this, I think it's super unrealistic to talk about refs actually gambling and being influenced by lines and certain things in the sports gambling industry. We do know the NBA has a partnership with FanDuel that's been pretty nourished over the last few years. I know they had FanDuel on the courts. I don't know if that was this year, but at one point they had FanDuel's logo on the courts. But I feel like what I wanted to point out here, take it from a different angle, is I feel like a lot of the betting is shifting the minds of players like way more than I don't think anyone actually realistically thinks that the refs are betting on these games, but I'm like pretty convinced that some of the players really do think that, and it's hurting their perspectives, which is destroying the game because everyone's going to listen to the players because they're the ones who are playing these games. So, I don't want to talk too much. So, what do you
But
think about that? Do you think certain players? I mean, we see Rudy Gobert is definitely suggesting it, but do you think other players also think that?
I don't think that players are necessarily like referees are necessarily calling the fouls just because like these betting lines and stuff like that. I think what happens with this is like the way the game's going, like or if you're known for like it's all about the relationships the refs has with these players. I think that plays an important fact of calling these calls and your status in the league. So say if you're uh, a superstar player like LeBron, you're obviously going to get more foul calls than a rookie who's starting his first year in the league. That just comes with like time and being great at the game. But to say that like these refs are favoring teams based on like just betting odds and stuff like that, I don't think it's really realistic. I think it comes down to these player relationships because like we see a lot of players, um, like I know number one is probably like Luka Doncic. You always see him complaining to the refs. Um, one of my favorite players, but like that's probably the worst part of his game is complaining to the refs, and I never understood that just because like you complain to these refs, it's like nine times out of 10, it's not going to change the foul call. It's not going to reverse anything. So I just never really understood why you complaining to the refs in general.
One thing I do want to bring up is this season especially, we've seen a lot of NBA players make comments about just sports betting in general. Not necessarily that it's
Yeah,
rigging games, but just like how they're annoyed with it. So I gathered a couple of quotes, and the first one is from my arch nemesis Kyrie Irving, who said, "Gambling and sports betting has completely taken the purity and the fun away from the game at times. There's a difference between being a diehard fan and supporting your team versus somebody that's betting on a parlay," which is a good point. Um,
yeah,
Clearly the fans are they always have something to say about like the high stakes betting fans always have something to say to players. We saw Malik Monk talk about the tweet, "I don't care about y'all parlays," to where he got
yeah,
absolutely ended when everyone responded, "No one's betting on you."
yeah.
So we could definitely see that it's affecting players. The conspiracies are insane.
I all right. I'll be honest. I do agree with Kyrie's take. I definitely think it is taken away from basketball and like the NBA fans in general. They literally only care about hitting their parlay, not if the team wins or anything. And I've seen that with myself, man. Like I just like I be watching games if I bet and I'll just be hoping that my bet hits. I'm like, oh my gosh, one more rebound away, one more point. And then nine times out of 10, they just like stay on that one away from actually hitting their bet. And it just destroys my mood for the rest of the night. But I'll never go to the extent of like DMing a player and saying anything like hurtful to them. I think that's extra, and at that point, you shouldn't have bet that money if you're gonna go to that point because you should only be betting what you're willing to lose.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree. I know co-host Kevin agrees with that. um, so here's a different angle that I wanted to propose as well is let's bring it back to the refs and away from the players. So, do you think these bad calls, do you think they're a product of NBA referees just being worse at their jobs? Because there's been a lot of bad calls this year. There's been the
For
Knicks
sure.
and Pistons game a couple weeks ago where Dante DiVincenzo tackled Asar Thompson and basically like confirmed a Knicks win when the Pistons had it in the bag. We also got LeBron last year against the Celtics, that fiasco, which was clearly a foul. Let's be honest. It was clearly a
Yeah.
foul. You got rim hanging technicals. You got Tatum getting a clutch foul every time, and then it gets overturned every single time. But, and then the Celtics lose. But, so is this a product of refs being worse at their job, or is this a product of us being better just technologically at being able to like review plays and actually like go back to these plays and see them again at so many different angles? Because traditionally we've never had the technology that we have now to where we get to like
Hmm.
see above the rim, we get to see like the sideline view, we get to see the regular views, close ups. Like I feel like part of the issue is these calls have always been being made. The problem is now we have the ability to see them, and with NBA players coming in and doing their own commentaries, I think that they especially will talk about fouls that are bad calls just because they know. Like JJ Redick comes to mind. But what do you think
Yeah.
about that?
That's a really interesting way to look at it. Like with the technology and everything. One thing I want to say is I think being an NBA referee is a really hard job. These are professionals at their job at playing refereeing at the highest level that you can for basketball. And going with that is like you said, the technology that they have, I think sometimes a lot these refs they miss these foul calls, and then once like teams challenge to play, look back at it and realize, oh yeah, that was a foul. But this season in particular, I kind of do agree that there have been kind of some really bad calls, especially in some like soft calls. Like for example, I think it was maybe last year or maybe 2 seasons ago. I think KD just clapped or something, and the ref teed them up.
I think
It
that
was
was
something
Tatum.
ridiculous.
That was
It was
Tatum.
Tatum.
Mm-hmm. He clapped and got
Yes.
teched.
Yeah, see, like that's not deserving of a tech. That's just like at that point you're just a mad you're just mad with Tatum at that point, and you took your advantage to call a tech on that, which I don't think is fair.
We just saw, speaking of that, I'm glad you brought those up because I feel like every game there's first of all there's a rim hanging technical, which is just complete. I think that's stupid, especially when players are
It is.
actually trying to save themselves from falling on other people. But the shift in technical fouls, I mean, what hasn't been said? Clearly, it's been an issue for a while. We just saw a couple nights ago DeJounte Murray ignore a ref on the while he's sitting on his own bench. He ignored a
Yeah,
ref and gets technical. Like it's
yeah,
so fucking it's so stupid. Like it's
yeah.
it
That
it
was dumb.
ruins so much.
See, like even that, I forgot about that. I was trying to think because I knew it happened recently,
Mm.
but that was the one I was thinking of. I just couldn't think. I always go back to that clapping one because that's just ridiculous. But
Same
even
with
like,
oh go ahead, go ahead.
but that was funny because the ref wouldn't, or he wouldn't talk to the ref, and the ref just got mad to tech him, which is so funny. But
The worst I think I've ever seen is the one where JJ Redick spins the ball to the ref, like just passes the ball to a
oh
ref and gets teched up for it. That one's always the craziest to me, but um yeah, I think the coach's challenge was definitely a step in the right direction, but um I just think with how many reviews and how many fouls there are now with all the free throw merchants in the league, um I think
actually,
yeah,
free throws have gone down
they've gone down, but it's still like an
every year
insane
after
amount.
year.
Okay, yes, that's a good point. So it's trending in the right direction, but do you
Yeah.
agree it's still a problem? There's still a shit ton of free throws.
There is. It just depends on the night, I think.
Yeah. I think like when we're reviewing plays as much as we are, especially with challenges now, I feel like the bad calls that usually like have always been bad calls but just slip under the radar are being brought to like the forefront now. And people are realizing just like how volatile NBA referee calls are. But final thoughts?
Um, no. You can find me if I said anything bad.
Shout out Scott Foster. That motherfucker
Yeah.
is definitely betting on games. Moving on. We're going to move on to drafting. Each of us, me and Victor, are going to draft a team. One team is going to be players with tattoos. The other team is going to be players, you guessed it, without tattoos. And we're going to see who has the best starting five out of either of us. Obviously, there's a lot of great players who have tattoos, but there's a lot of great players that you didn't know don't have tattoos. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and draft. Victor, you could have the first pick.
Well, my first pick, I might have to go with the greatest, arguably the greatest of all time, LeBron James.
He does have tattoos. You know what else is crazy, Victor? Is you told me Kawhi Leonard doesn't have tattoos, and he totally has tattoos. So
He
thanks
has
for that.
tattoos.
Thanks for that, because now I have to actually spend time searching for that player. But with my first player at the point guard spot, I'm gonna take James Harden. Bro's
Wow.
having an incredible season this year, reviving the Clippers franchise. And you know what? This wouldn't be a great offense without James Harden.
For my point guard, I'm gonna have to go with the greatest shooter of all time. Give me Stephen Curry.
pick a guy who has like 2 tattoos. I guarantee Luka Doncic has 1 forearm tat. You're gonna take Luka too.
I am.
It's no fucking bullshit. All right. At shooting
Why
guard,
not?
no, I mean it's totally fine. For my number 2 shooting guard, I'm gonna go ahead and take the 95 overall in 2K. Deserving or undeserving, you decide. I'm gonna take Jimmy Butler, Miami Heat
No.
legend. Yeah, I love how you're like drafting out of order, like out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as if I'm gonna like draft a player who you've
I know.
drafted, even though they're completely off the board for my side. But you can go ahead.
For my next pick, I'm gonna go with Anthony Davis for my 5.
No elaboration.
No, I mean I was thinking of big men in the league today, and a lot of them have no tattoos. The first 1 through 3, and AD is the best available,
Okay,
and he's having a good season this year, I think.
he is having a good season. He's having a healthy season, which is good.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess I'll have to skip over my small forward, considering you set me up to fail from the start, telling me Kawhi had no tats. So I guess we'll move on to the 4. um, my power forward is going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you're gonna have a good time trying to stop that because now I have Jimmy Butler and Giannis on the same roster, and that's clamps. So get
Yeah,
ready for
bro.
tremendous help side defense on this team.
I'm building the West All Stars. So
Literally.
yeah,
Does Shea have tats? Fuck,
I don't think he does.
maybe I
Does
can
he?
run maybe I could run Jimmy Butler at the 3. All right, go ahead and take your pick. I'm doing my research, but I'm listening.
Okay. So for my 4, I'm gonna have to go with the Slim Reaper. Give me Kevin Durant. Easy choice here. Um, One of the best scorers in the NBA history. Gonna go down as one of the all-time greats. So give me KD.
That's fair. That's fair. Um, looks like I'm gonna have to shift my lineup a little bit here.
Yeah.
um, so you know what sucks is I had to view a SGA shirtless fashion model picture for I believe it's Converse, but it's making me uncomfortable staring at this just to make sure he didn't have any tattoos. So I'm gonna move Jimmy Butler to my small forward position, and I'm moving SGA to my shooting guard position. So I have James Harden at 1, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander at 2, and Jimmy Butler at the 3. And then I'm gonna have Giannis at the 4.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. Your team's full of clamps. Like, I don't know.
I'm
You're
telling
building
you,
a
bro.
really except James Harden. James
Except
Harden, that's
Harden,
yeah.
but he's
You're gonna have
actually
to.
having a good defensive season this year, believe it or not.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's improved since his Rockets days. But um, yeah, that's your weakest defensive spot right there. And then depending who you go at your 5, but
You already know who it is.
yeah. So for my last spot, give me Luka Doncic, my favorite player. Obviously, I have to go with him. And no explanation needed for him. He's killing it. I think 6 straight games as of this recording with 30-point triple doubles.
Yeah, all of the stats I just put in my upcoming video are now outdated tremendously because of that. So shout out Luka Doncic for ruining my video. I might just have to cut his part out entirely. I talked about him for a little bit about triple doubles, but if you're viewing this, get ready. Banger inbound this week for the GMLB channel. But back to the draft. I'm gonna, this is an easy thought. If you haven't considered this already, then you might be living under a rock. But my center is going to be Nikola Jokic, if you will.
Nikola.
But yeah, so let's go over our final rosters here. So I'm interested because I feel like this would be a really good game. But
It would.
Victor, go ahead and let us know what your final roster is.
So I got Curry at the 1, Luka Doncic at the 2, At the 3, I got LeBron. At the 4, I got KD. And 5, I got Anthony Davis.
All right. And for my team, I have James Harden at point guard, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander at the 2 guard, Jimmy Butler at the 3, Giannis Antetokounmpo at the 4, and Nikola Jokic at the 5. Let us know down below who you think would win.
Yeah, your 2 through 3, or no, 2 through 4 defense is insane. Like,
Yeah, we got this is a very versatile team. You got
got
6'11"
clamps.
Giannis who could guard any position, literally any position. You got how tall is Jimmy Butler? Like 6'8", 6'7"?
6'8".
6'8" Jimmy Butler, super versatile, 6'6" SGA. Come on, man. Come on, man. We clamp it. So next up, Victor and I each picked 2 players, and we're gonna play the over, under, or perfectly rated game. So, Victor, do you want to start or me? It's up to you.
I'll give you my first player for you.
All right.
All right. Is Fred Van Fleet overrated, perfectly rated, or underrated?
All right. This season, it's a great question. This would be a very easy question if it was any other season besides this season. But this season, I am going to say that Fred Van Fleet is perfectly rated. I don't think there's a lot of buzz around Fred. I think people know that he's a very solid playmaker, solid shooter. He's not having his greatest season, but everyone has down years. Um, he was not an all-star this year, and he shouldn't have been. I don't think a lot of people are saying Fred is still that guy. I think the consensus of most NBA fans is that Fred is just a very solid point guard now. Kind of like Mike Conley when he was a little younger. Like 4 years younger, Mike Conley is kind of how I view Fred Van Fleet right now. But he is having even if it's a down, what people would consider a down season, he is having a good year. 17 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists on an up and coming team. The Rockets, I would consider the Rockets exceeding expectations this year. They're one game, I believe they're 1 seed out of the play-in tournament. So, yeah, I would say Fred Van Fleet is perfectly rated.
Yeah. And
Now,
then you want to do
what?
what were you saying?
I was going to give you a player.
Oh, okay. That's what I was gonna ask you. I didn't know if we were going back and forth.
Now we'll go back and forth. We'll go back and forth.
All right.
All right, my turn. So, your first player. I gave you 2 players. Joke's on you. I'm not giving you either of those players. I'm lying. I'm lying. Your first player, Victor, is Cam Thomas overrated, underrated, or perfectly rated?
Mm.
I feel like this is a good one
It's
because it
tough.
switches so much about
It
people.
does it does switch, and I think I'm gonna have to go with just perfectly rated because I think when he does like show out and show off, like we know that his offensive talent, like when he has those games where he goes, I think 5 games straight of 40-point games, and then you don't hear about him, but he's still contributing to this Nets team. Um he's he's only 22 years old, his 3rd year in the league. This guy has tremendous upside. He's a bucket getter. I think he could help the Nets out in the future. Really good on the offensive end, and I think the sky's the limit for him. He's only 22, like I said. He's still got time to grow in this league, averaging 21 this season. And yeah, man, that's all I got to say for him.
You don't consider it empty stats on a shitty team?
I mean, still putting up 21 points per game, like as a stat in the NBA, is still impressive on any team. I think it's hard to score in the league. They're playing at the top level, these guys, and anything's impressive, man.
Okay.
For anything 20 plus. But I was leaning either perfectly rated or slightly overrated because like yeah, when he does get into that, he is just mainly a pure scorer. If you look at him,
Mhm.
he's not really that good of a playmaker. Doesn't really play that well defensively. This dude is just a really good getting the ball in the hoop.
Well, yeah, he also has a great build too. I think he
Mhm.
has all of the tools to develop. So I'm with you. I think he could become a good defender. It's up to him though. It really is.
Yeah. All right, Miles, is LaMelo Ball perfectly rated, overrated, or underrated?
Yeah, I'm gonna get so much hate. I'm gonna get so much hate. You set me up, man. You fucking set me up. That's the consensus here. But my personal opinion on LaMelo Ball, he's slightly overrated. He's slightly overrated. Not a lot, not a lot. He's slightly overrated. And let me tell you why. First of all, my man is the head of the worst run franchise in the NBA besides the Wizards, and that's the Charlotte Hornets. The GOAT of NBA basketball is not the GOAT of business. All right. Fire Michael Jordan. That's the first thing. Second of all, LaMelo Ball is a great player. LaMelo Ball has a lot of great facets to his game. He's a very confident player, but these are empty stats. These are empty stats right now. Also, the injury woes are extremely, extremely scary to a lot of franchises. We saw Curry go through the same thing and blossom. Um, so that I'll throw that out there just as a counter argument so I don't get flamed in the comments. But the I mean, I think you would be insane to see LaMelo Ball's injuries and not at least take a step back and consider those things. But um I I don't know. He's so young. He's so young. Like he could still develop. Right now on the season, he's got 24 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, which are good stats. But Charlotte is not making any waves. Doesn't really have a direction. Doesn't really have a. I wouldn't consider them to have a great future ahead of them. And they also have a wife beater on the team. Shout out Miles Bridges for being a piece of shit. But I think LaMelo Ball is slightly overrated, especially coming up in the media takeover era of basketball, being a part of the Ball family. Um, but he can beat these allegations easily because I don't think he is that overrated. I think he's just slightly overrated.
Yeah, I kind of do agree with that. I think he's slightly overrated because when he does play and he's healthy, we've seen LaMelo do really good things on the basketball court. But I mean, it comes with being on a good franchise and staying healthy as well.
I guess another counter argument is he was an all-star. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Was
that's
he a
true.
was he a replacement all-star though? I mean, all-star is all-star.
Probably. Yeah, that I mean, still, yeah, I would still give it to him that he's an all-star.
Yeah.
I don't like it when people say like, oh, he's a replacement all-star. Like at the end of the day, you still made the team.
Yeah, that's true. Because someone got hurt, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Victor, your final player for over, under, or perfectly rated is Darius Garland.
I'm gonna go with underrated. I think Darius,
Really? That's
yeah.
actually, I was not expecting that.
So the reason why I'm gonna go underrated with Darius Garland is watching him play, man. This dude is so quick off the first step. I don't know how NBA players are able to stay in front of him. Might have the quickest first step in the NBA, but this guy is really good at scoring and playmaking as well. I think what kind of started his like decrease in like points on the team because he was an all-star before Donovan Mitchell got to the team. And then his field goal attempts have gone down since Donovan Mitchell came there, which is granted, but I think Darius Garland too, another thing is he could be another all-star in the future. This guy has that talent to do that. And I think just what like the explosion of guards in the East that came this season, like just like put him out of contention for being an all-star because we have so many great young point guards, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton. Um, I might be forgetting some other Trey Young. There's so many. There's
There's a lot
so
of other
many.
ones, but yeah, being
Yeah,
put on the spot sucks. I get it.
no, for sure. But yeah, there's so many good point guards in the East, and I think Darius Garland has a great future. I really do like that Cavs team. That's one team that I always like look on and be like, oh, like they might be set up for like really good future success if they put in the right build around Donovan Mitchell as well because we don't know his future yet. We don't know if he's going to go somewhere after his contract's up or if he's going to stay there. I think if he stays there, they could potentially have a team to be in the competition for the finals for years to come.
The bold take with the Celtics there.
it
The bold take. But
is, but I really do like their team. I don't know. They got really good defense in the paint. Um,
if Evan Mobley can just improve, like improve like they want him to, I think the sky's the limit.
true. Yeah, it's like I said, it's gonna take some time. They got a lot of young players on their team. They got a really good roster that could be something one day.
All right. I like those takes. Um, I know a lot of people would say Darius Garland is overrated this season. So it's refreshing to hear someone say under. Um, but let's move on to our final topic. My favorite topic. But this has been a blast the last couple weeks. And this is going to be GMLB's comment of the week, where we give back to all the people who take the time to join our community, take the time to let us know what they think. And so far, a lot of these have been have been funny, playful hate comments, but those are the best ones to pick for this.
Yeah,
All right. So I'm pretty sure this is the consensus winner, and I really don't think it's close. I was debating whether or not putting this comment on here just because it is a little triggering to some people. We don't mean it in any
yeah.
bad way, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. This one comes from Nico Printowski. Did he get it last week too? Did he get?
No, it
Okay,
was Marco.
it was Marco last week. Okay, so this one is Nico Printowski. He says, "Everybody in high definition," and Kevin is recording out the Osama bin Laden cave. And for those of you who haven't noticed yet on this podcast, Victor, you're in Kevin's room today. You're in Kevin's room today. Um, Little Easter egg for anyone who hasn't
Yeah.
noticed, but the difference is Victor's camera actually looks pretty good. We can actually read the signs behind him.
Yeah.
Rather
We
than see.
couldn't before.
Yeah, but I mean, Nico here has a point. He has a point. Kevin does look hella pixelated on pod sometimes.
We're
It
trying
might
to fix that.
it might be the lighting, it might be the Wi-Fi, it might be the camera. Um, I don't want Kevin to catch too many strays, but when he's not here to defend himself. But I will say I've seen that big guy open his computer and that screen is not clean. That is a nasty screen. Motherfucker could use some Windex. So if you feel like ever donating to us, donate $5 so Kevin can Windex his computer screen. Kevin, if you're watching this, I know you won't be. If you're watching this, get yourself some Windex. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Vic? What do you think about everybody in high definition is and Kevin is recording out the Osama bin Laden cave?
I mean, I think Nico had a spot on. He figured out our location. But
Yo, yo.
I'm just jo- I'm just joking. But yeah, we've been trying to fix that. We'll get it fixed. So it's don't worry, it's coming.
Yeah, we
Kevin will
got
be in HD.
one day One day Kevin will be in HD, and be careful if you're watching, because if you look into his eyes, he might turn you to stone. So, damn. I hope he watches this part, because next week he's gonna have his shit written out to say to me. I'm just gonna catch strays in his takes. All right, but that's gonna do it for this week's episode of GMLB. The episode might be edited a little different as we are all on break right now, and Nebraska's been pretty freaking cold, so I got a lot of snow to shovel this week. But shout out to everyone who's been here. Shout out to the fans. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Make sure to continue to support us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you like hearing us there. We appreciate everyone who joins the family. And with that being said, we'll see you next week. Deuces.